He raised his glass, his voice trembling just slightly, and said he had something to confess, right there in front of everyone. For a moment, the sound of the clinking forks and soft jazz faded into silence, and then the truth he dropped tore through our family like a quiet explosion. I froze mid-sip, my champagne glass halfway to my lips, as if time itself had stopped. Around the table, people whispered nervously, glances darting between him, the bride, and me. My son's hands tightened around the knife and fork. His bride's jaw dropped, and someone behind them coughed awkwardly. But none of that mattered. All that existed in that moment was Michael, standing at the head of the table, and the secret he had finally chosen to share. "Before we celebrate," he began, voice low but steady despite the tremor, "there is something I need to confess. Something I should have told you long ago." A soft, uncomfortable laugh rippled from the far end of the table. I wanted to shake them. This wasn't a joke. I could feel my heart hammering in my chest. My son, Daniel, looked at me, eyes wide, as if pleading for guidance. "Michael," I whispered, my voice barely audible over the rising tension. He didn't pause. His gaze swept over the table, lingering briefly on Daniel, then on the bride, and finally landing on me. The weight of his stare pressed down like a storm cloud. "For 20 years," he said slowly, deliberately, "I have lived with a secret, a truth I have hidden from everyone I love, including you, Sarah." The room felt unreal, like I was watching a movie in which I had somehow wandered onto the set mid-scene. My throat tightened. 2 decades of marriage, 32 years of mornings and nights, laughter and tears, all seemed fragile, delicate, nothing more than a house of cards waiting to collapse. "There's someone here tonight," he continued. "Someone I have been hiding, someone who is part of our family, someone I should have introduced to you years ago." I couldn't breathe. The air felt too heavy, thick, almost like smoke filling my lungs. My son's bride looked at me with wide, questioning eyes. I wanted to curl up into a ball, or perhaps strike or scream, but my body refused to obey. And then I saw her. At the far end of the table, a young woman in a pale blue dress sat quietly, hands folded in her lap. Her eyes lifted slowly, meeting mine, and in that instant she became the axis of a universe I had never known existed. "This is Claire," Michael said, voice trembling slightly now. "She is my daughter." The word daughter hung in the air like smoke. Guests froze mid-laughter, glasses paused halfway to mouths. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. My son's hands fell limply to the table. His bride gasped. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. My mind raced. How? When? Why now? Every detail of our life together, every quiet routine, every gentle glance we had shared, all of it was suddenly a lie layered over a truth I had never seen. "Michael, you what?" I asked, my voice shaking. He swallowed, his hands clenching and unclenching as if holding on to something invisible. "I didn't know about her until 2 years ago," he admitted, I discovered her and I couldn't leave her alone. I wanted to be a part of her life. I didn't think you'd understand or that it would be possible to explain without everything falling apart. My chest tightened. My hands shook. How could he speak so calmly about something that had just shattered the world I lived in? Daniel finally broke the silence, voice low and incredulous. Dad, at my wedding? You wait until tonight to tell us this? Michael looked at him, his expression tight with guilt. I wanted to wait for the right moments. I thought maybe tonight, with everyone gathered, I could make it right. Right? I echoed, my voice cracking. This is right? Right? Is honesty, not lying for decades and then revealing a child at your son's wedding. Michael flinched, as if he expected me to strike him, but I didn't. I was too shocked to move. All I could do was stare at Claire, who now raised her gaze to meet mine fully. She looked so small, so fragile, like she had walked into a world that had never been prepared for her. I didn't know, she whispered softly, her voice trembling. I only wanted to meet my father. Her innocence was infuriating. Not her, not really. Him. He had hidden her from us all these years, and now she is here, a living symbol of his secrets. Why here? Why tonight? I demanded, my voice rising despite myself. He didn't answer first. He looked at her, then at me, then at Daniel. Because she is part of this family, he said finally, voice low. She deserves to be part of your lives. I wanted to laugh, a sharp, bitter laugh that sounded like crying. Part of this family? I said, my voice trembling. Do you hear yourself? Daniel's hands clenched into fists on the table. Mom, can you believe this? I didn't answer. I couldn't. I wanted to run, to scream, to destroy something. Instead, I just stared at the empty, trembling figure of the girl he had kept hidden, at the man who had married me while concealing her existence, at my son, staring in shock and confusion. Somewhere behind us, soft music played. Glasses clinked in the distance. A chair scraped lightly against the floor. But in that moment, the world had fallen away. I whispered to myself, almost inaudibly, this isn't happening. And yet, it was. The night that had begun as a celebration had become a crucible, melting everything I thought I knew. Our marriage, our family, the life I had built, all suspended on the single word, daughter. I need some air, I said finally, my voice breaking. I pushed my chair back with a screech that seemed deafening in the silence. Daniel rose immediately, following closely, while Michael remained frozen, as if he too were waiting for something that would never come. Outside, the cool night air hit me like a shock. I could feel my body trembling uncontrollably. Daniel grabbed my hand, holding it tightly. Mom, what does this mean? He asked, voice quivering. I didn't know. I couldn't even formulate the words. I don't know yet, I whispered, the cold air burning my lungs. But it changes everything. And in that instant, I understood something I had never realized before. No secret, no matter how carefully hidden, stays buried forever. The truth had arrived, and with it, a storm we could no longer avoid. The hallway outside the dining hall felt unreal, like a world carved out of silence. The muffled music and laughter of the wedding party faded into a distant hum, leaving only the heavy weight of everything Michael had revealed. My hands still shook, my nails biting into my palms as if gripping the wall could anchor me to reality. Daniel followed close behind, his own face pale, jaw clenched. "Mom, what just happened?" he whispered, voice tight with disbelief. I shook my head. "I don't know," I admitted, my throat raw. I don't know." We leaned against the wall, waiting for something to happen, for someone to explain how a life could be turned upside down in a single sentence. But no explanation came, only silence. The soft hum of the air conditioning became deafening, filling every corner of the space between us. I closed my eyes, trying to remember the life before Claire existed, the life before this revelation, and for the first time, I realized how fragile it had always been, how easily a single truth could fracture everything. Daniel ran his hand through his hair, pacing a small circle in front of me. "Mom, she's real, isn't she? He's serious. He really has a daughter?" I opened my eyes to the dim light of the hallway. The shadows seemed to stretch long and cold across the walls. I wanted to scream, to cry, to demand answers, but no sound came. Only the echo of Michael's confession lingered, sharp and relentless. "Yes," I whispered finally, more to myself than to him. "She's real." Daniel's shoulders slumped, and he ran a hand down his face. How do we even start to deal with this? I didn't have an answer. Not yet. Not ever, maybe. I felt a cold clarity settle over me. The life I had believed in, the family I had loved, had been a carefully constructed illusion. And now, in one evening, it was gone. "We wait," I said quietly, trying to summon strength I didn't feel. "We watch, and we see the truth for ourselves before we react." Daniel nodded, but his face betrayed no comfort, only fear. We stood there for what felt like hours, wrapped in our own private storm, the faint sounds of the party behind us now meaningless. I thought of Claire again, small, trembling, sitting at the end of the table, waiting for acceptance I couldn't give. She was innocent. She didn't deserve this chaos, not really, but she was part of it, a living reminder of every secret that had been hidden, every word unsaid, every life carefully compartmentalized. "Mom?" Daniel's voice broke through my thoughts again. "Do we even know her? Can we trust her?" I shook my head. "I don't know yet, but we'll find out." The words felt hollow even as I spoke them. I wanted to run back, to confront Michael, to demand explanations, to demand honesty. But I couldn't, not yet. I needed to breathe, to let the storm settle enough to see what remained beneath it. "What about Dad?" Daniel asked quietly, almost afraid of the answer. I stared at the closed doors of the dining hall. I didn't know. He had hidden this from us all, but the truth was here now. The man I thought I knew had lived another life alongside ours, and nothing I could say or do would erase that. We take it one step at a time, one day at a time, I whispered. Daniel nodded again, and together we leaned against the wall, swallowed by the silence. It was a pause between worlds, the space between what was and what could never be undone. After a long moment, I finally spoke again, voice low and trembling. We have to face them, eventually, but not tonight. And with that, we retreated further into the shadowed hallway, holding on to each other for balance, for comfort, for survival. The storm had begun, and we were caught in its center. I thought about Michael sitting at the head of the table, trying to explain, trying to apologize, trying to repair decades of hidden truths. But I realized something. There was no repairing, only living, only surviving, and somehow finding a way to forgive without forgetting. I pressed my forehead to the wall and let the cold surface ground me. The sounds of the party were faint now, distant, almost unreal, and in that quiet, I felt a flicker of clarity that I could face this, that Daniel could face this, and that even Claire had a place in this new fractured reality. But acceptance didn't come easily, not tonight, not tomorrow. It would take months, maybe years, to navigate the shifting terrain Michael had created with a single revelation. The hallway seemed endless, stretching on like the years I had lost. I could feel the weight of every secret, every lie, every stolen moment pressing down on me. And yet, beneath the despair, there was a spark, a determination I didn't know I still had. "We survive," I whispered to Daniel, voice barely audible. "We survive, and then we see." He nodded, his fingers gripping mine. We were alone in that hallway, but not powerless. We would face this. We would endure. We would emerge, somehow, on the other side of the truth. For the first time that night, I felt the tiniest flicker of hope. And even as the storm raged in the dining hall behind us, I knew that somehow we would find our footing. Somehow we would navigate the chaos, the lies, the betrayals, and the truths that could no longer be hidden. Because there was no turning back, only forward, only the storm, only survival. The night after the wedding was the hardest. The house was quiet, almost too quiet, the kind of silence that presses against your chest and makes it hard to breathe. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the half-empty wine glass in front of me, tracing the rim with a finger. Outside, the wind moved through the trees with a soft whisper, the kind that usually brought comfort. Tonight, it felt like the world itself was mocking me. Daniel paced the living room, phone in hand, replaying snippets of the wedding video, over and over. Each time Michael's voice rang out, confessing his secret, it felt like a punch in the stomach, the reality hitting sharper with every replay. "Mom," Daniel said, voice tight, eyes red. "I keep watching it. I can't believe he did this. To us. To me." "I know. I don't understand it either. And I don't know how we fix it. But we'll figure it out. One step at a time." Daniel shook his head, letting out a frustrated laugh that was more anguish than humor. "One step at a time? Mom, he's spent years hiding her. He's lied to all of us, and now she's here, part of our family? How do you just accept that? I didn't have an answer. All I could do was sip the wine, letting the bitter taste remind me I was still alive. The door creaked open softly, and Michael stepped in. He looked worn, older than he had in years, the weight of his secret etched into every line in his face. I didn't stand. I just watched him, silent, waiting for him to speak, to apologize, to explain. "Sarah," he said quietly, "I know tonight I ruined everything. I wasn't thinking about how this would affect you or Daniel or anyone. I just, I wanted to do the right thing in the wrong way." "The right thing?" I echoed, voice trembling. "You've spent 20 years hiding her. That is not the right thing." Michael flinched, swallowing hard. "I know. And I can't take back what I did. I can only try to explain and hope somehow you'll understand. Claire, she's my daughter. I didn't know I had her until 2 years ago. And when I found out, I couldn't leave her. I had to be there for her." I stared at him, searching for the man I thought I had married. Somewhere under the weight of years and deception, he was still there. But the man I had trusted, the life I had built, was gone. "And so you chose tonight, at my son's wedding, in front of everyone?" I asked, voice rising despite my best efforts. "That seemed like the right time?" Michael's eyes dropped. I I didn't know how else. I wanted to introduce her to all of you. I thought maybe if I did it in a celebration with everyone together, it would feel easier." I laughed bitterly, the sound hollow and sharp. "Easier? Easier for you, maybe, not for anyone else. Not for me, not for Daniel, not for the bride, not for Claire." He nodded, the weight of guilt heavy on his shoulders. "I know, and I'm sorry. I can't change the past. I only hope that someday, maybe you can forgive me." "Forgive you?" I whispered, disbelief and anger warring in my chest. "You don't get forgiveness for 20 years of secrecy. You just exist now with your truth and expect us to accept it?" Michael flinched again, but didn't respond. There were no words left, only the heavy silence that had settled over the kitchen. It was then that Claire appeared in the doorway. She looked fragile, almost ethereal, the pale blue dress still clinging awkwardly to her form. Her hands were folded nervously in front of her, eyes wide, uncertain. "Mom, I I just wanted to meet you. I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to hurt anyone." I felt the sting of tears, not from her, but from the man who had hidden her, the man who had spent decades leading a double life without a thought for the consequences. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to break the fragile silence into pieces, but I didn't. "Claire," I whispered, voice shaking, "you didn't do anything wrong. You didn't hide yourself. But your father—" I trailed off, unable to finish. Daniel finally spoke, his voice softer now, though still tense. "Mom, she's just a kid. She didn't choose this either." I nodded, swallowing hard. He was right. Claire was innocent. But innocence didn't erase the years of betrayal, the lies, the hidden truths that had shaped our lives without our knowledge. Michael moved closer, eyes pleading. Sarah, I'm trying. I don't know how to fix this, but I want to try. Please, don't push her away. She needs us now. I looked at him, at Claire, at Daniel, and realized something. The storm was just beginning. The night had started with a celebration and ended with a revelation that would change everything, and there was no going back. All I could do was breathe, one shaky breath at a time, and hope that somehow, through anger, confusion, and betrayal, we would find a way forward. Because the truth had arrived, and we had no choice but to face it. The house felt different the next morning. The sunlight spilling through the windows didn't warm me as it used to. It highlighted shadows where none had existed before. Claire was there, sitting at the kitchen table, quietly eating toast and orange juice. I watched her from the doorway, my chest tight, my hands trembling slightly. She wasn't a threat, not really, but her presence and everything it represented made the walls of our home feel narrower, the air heavier. Daniel moved around the kitchen, muttering under his breath, his frustration barely contained. Mom, she's just sitting there, like nothing happened, he said. How can anyone act normal after what Dad told us? I didn't answer. I didn't know what to say. The truth was, I hadn't slept. My mind had replayed Michael's confession over and over, each time twisting into new angles of betrayal. And Claire, sweet, fragile, unassuming Claire, was now living in the epicenter of all that deception. She looked up suddenly, eyes wide and vulnerable. "Good morning," she whispered. Her voice was soft, almost hesitant, and I had to remind myself that she was a child, innocent in a way I hadn't considered. "Good morning," I replied, my voice steady, though my heart raced. There was an awkward silence, the kind that stretches long enough for the mind to replay the past and imagine impossible futures. I watched her chew quietly, aware of every small motion, the way her fingers curved around the edge of her glass, the slight tremble in her hands, and the way she avoided my gaze. Daniel finally spoke again, frustration threading his words. "Mom, how do you even look at her? How do you not, I don't know, explode?" I shook my head. "Daniel, you can't blame her. She didn't do anything wrong. She's just existing now." He threw up his hands in exasperation. "Existing? Mom, she's part of Dad's secret, part of a life we didn't know existed. How do you just accept that?" I wanted to shout, to scream, to demand an answer I didn't have. Instead, I simply exhaled and moved to the counter, pouring myself another cup of coffee. The bitter liquid burned my throat, a small reminder that I was alive, that I could still make choices, still survive. Claire's eyes followed me, tentative, curious. She said, "I'm sorry," she said softly again. "I didn't mean to cause trouble. I just wanted to meet you. I didn't know how." Her apology, though sincere, made the weight of the deception almost unbearable. I could forgive her, I realized. She hadn't lied. She hadn't schemed, but forgiving her didn't erase Michael's actions, nor the years of silence, nor the trust that had been shattered. "I know," I said, finally, voice soft but firm. "You didn't do anything wrong, Claire, but it's not easy. This, all of this, it's not easy." She nodded slowly, eyes downcast. I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she held herself like she was bracing for impact. She was a reflection of all the chaos Michael had unleashed, fragile, innocent, yet indelibly part of the storm he had created. The days that followed were quiet but tense. Michael tried to explain, to apologize, to make amends, but his words felt hollow at times. Or maybe it was me. The house, once a haven, now felt like a courtroom. Every glance, every movement, every word was measured, scrutinized, as if a single misstep could topple the delicate balance we were trying to achieve. Daniel spent most of the mornings retreating to his room, headphones on, music blaring, as a way to escape the reality of a family he no longer recognized. I moved through the house like a ghost, trying to keep things functional, making breakfast, setting the table, answering questions about school or work, all while carrying the weight of betrayal on my shoulders. Claire remained quiet, polite, tentative. She helped with small chores, washed dishes without complaint, and attempted to make herself invisible in the moments she sensed tension. I admired her for it, but even admiration carried a bitter edge. She was part of Michael's secret, and every time I saw her, I was reminded of the life that had been hidden from me. One afternoon, Michael approached me while I was folding laundry. He didn't speak immediately, just stood there, hands in his pockets, shoulders tense. I could see the fatigue in his eyes, the way the weight of his actions pressed down on him. "Sarah," he began softly, "I know this isn't easy. I know I've hurt you, all of you, but I want to try. I want to do right by Claire, by Daniel, by us. Please, let me try." I didn't look at him. Folding the laundry felt like the only act of control left to me. "Michael, do you know what it feels like to realize your entire life has been built on someone else's secret? Do you know how it feels to trust someone completely, only to find that everything you believed in was a lie?" His jaw tightened. "I know, and I'm sorry. I can't change the past. I can only move forward with Claire, with you, with Daniel. I can only ask for a chance to make things better." I sighed, heavy with exhaustion. Better? I don't even know what that looks like anymore. But we'll see, one day at a time. He nodded. One day at a time. The days stretched into a quiet rhythm of tentative coexistence. Breakfasts were subdued. Conversations were careful. The house was filled with the ghosts of years spent hiding truths, and every interaction reminded us that nothing would ever be simple again. And through it all, Claire moved like a shadow in our lives, gentle, quiet, seeking connection, yet always holding the awareness that she was both part of us and apart from us. I realized that living with the truth wasn't about immediate resolution. It was about endurance, about surviving each day, facing the emotions that rose like tides, and finding a way to accept what had been hidden without letting it destroy what remained. Because the truth had arrived, and it was permanent, and there was no turning back. It was late afternoon when I finally found myself alone with Claire in the living room. The soft light from the windows spilled across her pale blue dress, highlighting the delicate curve of her shoulders, the nervous tilt of her head. She looked smaller somehow, fragile and hesitant, like a bird caught in a sudden storm. I wanted to speak, to scream, to demand answers, but I didn't. I simply stood there, my hands gripping the back of the sofa, feeling the weight of decades pressing down on me. "Claire," I said finally, voice trembling slightly, "come sit." She obeyed, folding her hands in her lap, eyes fixed on the floor. I noticed the way she tapped her fingers nervously against each other, the faint quiver in her chin. Innocence and fear collided in her small frame, and I realized something. She hadn't chosen this. None of this was her fault. And yet, the storm she represented was unavoidable. I just want you to know I didn't mean to cause problems. I only wanted to meet my father." I studied her, letting the words hang between us. I know you didn't. But do you understand what it's like to have someone you've trusted your entire life, someone you built a family with, suddenly reveal a secret that changes everything? Do you understand what it feels like to realize your entire life has been hidden from you? Her eyes lifted slightly, a flicker of understanding and fear in them. I think I do. I didn't know. I didn't know he had another life. He did. And now you're part of it. But that doesn't mean you can just exist here without consequences. This is our home, our family, and you are a reminder of everything we didn't know. Do you understand that?" She swallowed hard, nodding slowly. "Yes, I understand. I didn't want to be a problem." "You're not the problem," I said quietly, softening slightly. The problem was never you. It was him, and the truth he chose to reveal in the worst possible way." She looked down again, tracing invisible patterns on her lap with her fingers. The silence stretched between us, heavy and oppressive. It was the kind of silence that fills a room not with peace, but with anticipation, the sense that anything could shatter it at any moment. "Claire," I continued, "I'm not going to lie to you. This won't be easy. I don't know if I can accept everything right away.
You're part of this family, yes, but you must understand that the trust that's been broken isn't yours to fix. It's mine to navigate. And right now, it's fragile. She nodded again, voice barely audible. I'll try. I promise. I want a chance. A chance is all anyone can ask for. But it's not enough to erase the past. You need to understand that, Claire. You need to understand that all of this, took years to build, and it takes years to untangle. She looked up at me fully for the first time, her eyes shining with unshed tears. I understand. I don't want to hurt anyone. I want to belong. The word belong hung in the air, fragile and luminous. I realized then that part of me wanted to deny it, to push her away, to protect what little stability remained. And yet, another part, a quieter, more compassionate part, wanted to hold her, to reassure her that she wasn't alone, that she could be part of something even if it was fractured. We'll see, I said finally. We'll see how it goes, but understand, Claire, this isn't a fairy tale. This isn't a storybook where everything works out because someone wants it to. This is real life, messy, complicated, and sometimes painful. And you're in it now. You have to accept that.
She nodded, a small, tentative smile flickering across her lips. It was not relief. It was not joy. It was the careful beginning of understanding, the first fragile thread of connection in a web of uncertainty. Later that evening, Michael attempted to mediate, trying to soothe the tension that hung like smoke in the air. But every word he spoke seemed inadequate, hollow, like trying to patch a wall that had been crumbling for decades. Daniel retreated to his room, headphones on, letting music drown out the uncomfortable reality that had infiltrated every corner of our lives. I remained in the kitchen, Claire sitting across from me quietly, and I realized something profound. Survival wasn't about anger. It wasn't about confrontation. It was about endurance, about navigating each day with the understanding that the past could not be changed, only endured. Claire's presence reminded me of every secret Michael had kept, every lie, every omission. And yet, she was innocent. She didn't ask to exist in the shadow of deception. She didn't ask to be revealed at a wedding. And for the first time that day, I felt a flicker of empathy. Claire, we'll take it one day at a time. You need to understand our world now, and we need to understand you. It won't be easy. It may never be easy. But we'll try. Her small nod, almost imperceptible, felt like a promise. Not a resolution, not forgiveness, but a tentative beginning. That night, I lay awake in our bedroom, staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation, every glance, every word. Michael had revealed his secret, yes, but the storm that followed, Claire, Daniel, the fragile threads of our family, was only just beginning. And I realized then that truth, once revealed, does not bring peace. It brings challenge. It brings reflection. It brings survival. Because some storms do not pass. They only leave you to navigate the wreckage. The days that followed unfolded like a fragile thread stretched over a precipice. The house felt smaller, tighter, as though the walls themselves had absorbed the tension of Michael's revelation. Claire moved quietly through the rooms, careful not to disturb anything, polite to a fault, trying desperately to exist without leaving a trace. Daniel retreated further into his world of music and online games, headphones over his ears, his eyes avoiding both Michael and Claire. Every now and then he would glance at me, his gaze a mixture of frustration, confusion, and silent pleading. I didn't blame him. I felt the same. Michael, for his part, tried. He moved through the house with quiet purpose, attempting to make amends in small ways, offering Claire a cup of coffee, asking Daniel about school, trying to engage me in conversations that felt rehearsed, almost awkward. His efforts were sincere, yes, but heavy with guilt, and guilt has a way of suffocating even the best intentions. Sarah, I know this is hard. I know it's everything, but we have to try. For Claire, for Daniel, for us. I didn't look at him. Folding the laundry felt like the only small piece of control I had left in the chaos. I said finally, not enough is trying. Not after decades of deception, not after a life carefully constructed on secrets. Trying doesn't undo that. Michael sighed and ran a hand through his hair. I know. I don't expect it to. I only hope we can find a way forward. Forward, I echoed, voice tight. Forward for whom? For Claire? For you? Or for the life we thought we had? He hesitated. For all of us. Eventually. It's messy now, yes. But we can survive this, Sarah. We have to. I wanted to believe him. I tried. I really did. But the anger, the betrayal, the sense of being blindsided was a heavy cloak I couldn't shrug off. Every glance at Claire reminded me of the years lost. Every word from Michael, a reminder of what had been hidden. Claire, unaware of the tension building like a storm overhead, tried her best to integrate. She offered to help with chores, stayed quiet during meals, and attempted to engage Daniel in polite conversation. But every effort seemed to amplify the tension rather than ease it. I'm sorry, she whispered one evening as I cleared the table after dinner. I don't want to cause trouble. I don't want to be alone anymore. I paused, hands on the dishes, staring at her. You're not the cause of this, I said quietly, my voice softer than I expected. You're a part of it, yes, but you didn't hide anything. You didn't plan any of this. You're just here now, like the rest of us, and we all have to learn how to live with it. Her eyes brimmed with tears, but she blinked rapidly, trying not to let them fall. I just want to belong, she whispered again. I felt a pang in my chest. That word, belong, echoed in me. Everyone wanted to belong, to be part of a family, to feel accepted. But belonging isn't given, it's earned. And some truths take decades to integrate. Some wounds take a lifetime to heal. The evening progressed with quiet unease. Daniel disappeared to his room, headphones on, muttering something about finishing a game. Michael retired to his study, closing the door softly behind him, and I sat alone with Claire, the air between us thick with unspoken tension. "Claire," I said finally, voice soft but firm, "living here isn't going to be easy. You'll have to understand that. There will be moments of frustration, anger, and doubt. You'll see the cracks in our family. You'll see me struggle to separate my anger at your father from my feelings toward you." She nodded slowly, eyes wide, lips pressed together. "I understand," she whispered. I want to try." "Trying isn't enough," I said, repeating the words I had spoken to Michael. "It's not a guarantee. It's just the beginning, but it's the only thing we have right now." The nights were the hardest. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had been hidden from me, everything I had taken for granted, and everything I now had to face. Claire, Michael, Daniel, all intertwined in a reality I could no longer control. I thought of the quiet mornings, the small routines that once brought comfort. Now every sound felt amplified. Claire's footsteps in the hallway, Daniel's muffled sighs from his room, Michael's soft murmurings in the study. Every noise reminded me of the new life I had been forced into, the fragile equilibrium that could shatter at any moment. "Survival," I whispered to myself, repeating the word like a mantra. "Endurance, one day at a time." And yet, even as I clung to that thought, I knew that survival alone wouldn't be enough. The emotional turbulence, the unresolved anger, and the fragile connections between us would demand confrontation, clarity, and eventually forgiveness. Claire, sensing my distance, approached cautiously one evening, placing a tentative hand on my arm. "Mom," she whispered, I want to understand you. I want to be part of your life if you'll let me." I looked down at her, and for a long moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. The anger, the betrayal, the frustration, they were still there, simmering beneath the surface. But so was a flicker of something else: empathy, compassion, a recognition that she too, like all of us, was navigating the aftermath of truth. "We'll see," I said finally, voice low. "We'll see how it goes. But understand, Claire, this is real life. It's messy, complicated, and sometimes painful. And you're in it now. You have to accept that." She nodded, eyes glistening. Not relief, not happiness, just understanding. That night, as I lay awake once more, I realized something crucial. The household was no longer just a home. It was a testing ground for trust, resilience, and the ability to navigate truths that could no longer be ignored. And within that chaos, Claire's presence was a constant reminder of everything hidden, everything lost, and everything that could be rebuilt if we survived long enough to try. One day at a time, I whispered again. Endure, survive, and maybe find a way forward. It happened on a rainy afternoon. The sky outside was a bruised gray, and the rain tapped steadily against the windows, each drop a reminder of the tension that had settled over the house. I was in the kitchen, washing dishes, my mind replaying Michael's secret, Claire's tentative presence, and Daniel's quiet withdrawal. Every movement felt heavy, every breath deliberate. Claire appeared in the doorway, holding a small stack of books she had borrowed from the local library. She approached slowly, hesitant, eyes downcast. "Mom," she said softly, "I thought maybe I could help Daniel with his history project. I know it's not perfect, but—" "Claire," I said sharply, though not unkindly, "you can't fix this. You can't make everything right. You can't erase the years we've lost or the secrets that were hidden from us. You're not responsible for any of it." Her hands trembled slightly as she held the books. "I know," she whispered. I want to try." Before I could respond, the sound of a slammed door echoed from the upstairs hallway. Daniel's voice carried down, sharp, frustrated. "I don't want to deal with any of this. I can't. I can't handle it." I froze. The tension that had been simmering beneath the surface for days now erupted in a single outburst. Michael appeared behind me, voice calm, but heavy with guilt. "Sarah, I know it's hard, but we have to. We have to?" I snapped, spinning around to face him. "You think we have to just accept it? Just accept decades of lies? Claire didn't choose this. Daniel didn't choose this. And I sure as hell didn't choose this. And yet here we are, pretending everything is okay because why? Because it's easier for you?" Michael flinched, but didn't respond immediately, his hands fisted at his sides. I wanted to do the right thing. I thought it would be better to reveal her in a way that was gentle, in front of the family, so no one felt excluded. I didn't think about the chaos it would cause. I didn't think— "You didn't think?" I echoed, voice cracking. "You didn't think about the years, the trust, the life we built together? You didn't think about us, about Daniel? You just acted." He hung his head, the weight of shame heavy on him. "I know, and I'm sorry. I can't undo the past, Sarah. I can only try to make things right now." The room was silent, except for the rain against the windows and Claire's quiet sniffle from the doorway. She was watching us, eyes wide, caught between relief and fear, unsure how to move forward without making things worse. "Make things right?" I said, finally, voice low, trembling with anger and exhaustion. "You can't make things right. You can only try to survive the wreckage you created. And that is your punishment." Michael closed his eyes and nodded slowly, acknowledging the truth of my words. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating, before Daniel's footsteps padded lightly down the stairs. He stopped at the bottom, headphones dangling from his hands, eyes red. "Mom, Dad, I can't. I don't know how to deal with any of this. I feel betrayed, confused, angry, and I can't pretend to be okay." I looked at him, heart aching. He was still my child, still my son, but yet he was changing under the weight of truth, growing distant in ways I hadn't anticipated. I wanted to hold him, to tell him everything would be fine, but the truth was, nothing would be fine, not for a long time. "Daniel," I said softly, stepping closer, "you don't have to be okay. None of us have to be okay. This is hard, but we survive. We endure. We try. And eventually, maybe we heal. But not today. Not yet." Claire moved closer as well, taking a tentative step forward. I didn't mean to cause any of this. I wanted to meet my father. I just wanted a family." Her words cut through me, a mixture of sorrow and empathy. She was innocent, yes, but her existence was inseparable from the chaos Michael had created. I felt a pang of compassion, despite the anger and frustration. "You're not the problem, Claire," I said, voice quiet now, softer than before. "You didn't hide anything. You didn't plan any of this. But you're here now, and it's complicated. That's all. Complicated doesn't mean wrong. It just is." She nodded, eyes glistening. "I understand," she whispered. The tension lingered, thick and oppressive, as we all stood in the living room, each caught in our own emotions: guilt, betrayal, fear, and tentative empathy. The rain continued to fall outside, a steady drumbeat against the windows, marking time, reminding us that life, despite the chaos, continued. Later that night, after Daniel had retreated to his room and Claire had gone to bed, I found myself alone with Michael in the kitchen. The house was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. "Sarah," he began, voice low, almost pleading, "I know I've broken everything. I know I can't undo the past, but I want to try. I want to do right by all of you, by Claire, by Daniel, by you. Please give me a chance." I stared at him, seeing the man I had loved, the man who had lied, the man who had revealed a secret too heavy to bear. I wanted to scream. I wanted to weep. I wanted to run. "Michael, survival isn't about chances," I said finally, voice trembling. "It's about endurance. It's about facing the chaos, the pain, the betrayal, and somehow not letting it destroy you. That's what you have to do. And that's what I have to do. And that's what Claire has to do." He nodded slowly, silent, acknowledging the truth in my words. The kitchen was quiet, except for the steady rhythm of the rain and our slow, uneven breaths. And in that quiet, I realized something profound. The storm was far from over, but maybe, just maybe, we could weather it together. Because the truth had arrived, uninvited and unstoppable, and now it was up to us to survive it. The next morning, the house felt different, though not better. The tension was still thick, but there was a subtle shift, a quiet, almost imperceptible acknowledgement that survival meant trying, even when hearts were raw. Claire moved through the kitchen with tentative purpose, carrying the breakfast dishes to the table. She spoke softly, almost afraid to disrupting the fragile atmosphere. Daniel sat at the table, headphones off this time, his posture rigid. He stared at his plate, tracing the rim of his mug with a finger. I could see the storm of thoughts behind his eyes, confusion, anger, and a reluctant curiosity toward Claire. Daniel said finally, voice tight, "Claire, why are you here? I mean, why now? Why appear at the wedding? Why did you get to just exist in our lives like this?" Claire flinched but didn't retreat. I didn't choose when to be here. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I wanted to know my father. I wanted a family. Daniel's jaw tightened. You wanted a family, and now our family is broken. That's what you did. You didn't mean to, maybe, but everything's changed. I intervened gently, placing a hand on his shoulder. Daniel, Claire didn't break anything. Your father's choices did. But she's here now, and she didn't ask for any of this. She's part of the consequences, yes, but she's not the source of the problem. He didn't respond immediately, only staring at his hands, fingers fidgeting. The silence was thick, but Claire's quiet persistence began to bridge the distance. "Daniel," she said softly, "I know this is hard. I know you're angry. I am too, in a way. But maybe we can try to understand each other. I don't want to replace anyone. I want a chance to belong." Her words hung in the air, fragile and tremulous. Daniel's eyes lifted slowly, meeting hers for the first time. There was still anger, yes, but there was curiosity too. The spark of recognition that we were all navigating this storm together. "I don't know if I can," he said finally, voice low. "But maybe we can try." Claire nodded, a small, hopeful flicker crossing her face. It wasn't relief. Not yet. But it was a beginning. Later that day, I found myself in the living room with Claire alone. She sat cross-legged on the sofa, eyes downcast, hands clasped tightly in her lap. The sunlight filtered through the windows, casting soft patterns on the floor. "Claire," I said softly, "can I ask you something?" She nodded. "When you look at this family, at your father, at Daniel, at me, what do you see?" She hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "I see confusion and pain, but I also see love. I see a family that isn't perfect, but that could be, if we try, if we endure." Her answer took me by surprise. I had expected fear, guilt, or hesitation. Instead, I heard thoughtfulness, a depth beyond her years. And I realized something crucial. She wasn't just a child caught in Michael's secret. She was a person with her own perspective, her own resilience, and her own capacity to bridge the fractures in our family. "Endure," I whispered, echoing the word I had repeated countless times to myself. Yes, endure. And maybe find a way to forgive, or at least coexist. She smiled faintly, almost imperceptibly. It was the smallest gesture, but it carried weight. A recognition that, despite everything, she was willing to try. That evening, Daniel approached her tentatively as she was organizing her books in the living room. The tension was still palpable, but his voice held a softness I hadn't heard in days. Claire, I want to say, I'm sorry. I've been hard on you, but I want to try too. I want to see if we can make this work, even if it's weird and even if it's not perfect. She looked up, eyes glistening. I'd like that, she whispered. And for the first time in days, I felt a subtle warmth seep into the house. Not resolution, not peace, but connection. Fragile, tentative, delicate, like the first light of dawn after a long, dark night. Michael, sensing the shift, joined us later that night. He remained quiet mostly, watching as Daniel and Claire exchanged tentative smiles, the first real signs of understanding. This is a start, I said quietly, more to myself than anyone else. It's not perfect, it's messy, but it's a start. Michael nodded slowly. Yes, a start. The storm hadn't passed. The truth was still raw, still painful, still capable of erupting at any moment. But within the chaos, a thread of hope had begun to weave itself through the family. One day at a time, I whispered again, the mantra that had carried me through the last weeks. One day at a time. Survive, endure, and maybe heal. And as Claire settled into her chair, Daniel returned to his room with a quieter demeanor, and Michael retreated to the study with a thoughtful expression. I realized that beginnings are often messy, imperfect, and fragile, but they are beginnings nonetheless. And for the first time, the house felt slightly lighter, because despite the betrayals, despite the anger, despite the years of hidden truths, a tentative connection had formed. And in that connection, however small, there was hope. Hope that survival wasn't the only goal. Hope that forgiveness, understanding, and belonging might be possible. And in the quiet of that evening, as the rain tapped softly against the windows, I finally allowed myself to imagine a future where the storm didn't destroy us completely, where perhaps we could emerge stronger together. The tension in the house reached its peak one late afternoon. Rain drizzled softly against the windows, the sky gray and heavy, mirroring the weight of unspoken words that lingered in every room. I was in the kitchen, wiping down counters, when I heard the unmistakable creak of Michael's study door opening. Sarah. Daniel, Claire, he began, voice low but firm. We need to talk. All of us. I looked at him, wary, heart pounding. Talk? I asked, voice tight. You mean another confession? Another attempt to smooth over the wreckage you created? Michael shook his head, shoulders slumping. No, this isn't about hiding. This is about facing it, all of it, together. And finally, being honest. Daniel appeared in the doorway, headphones gone, expression unreadable but tense. Claire followed behind him, cautiously, her fingers entwined nervously. The four of us stood in the living room, the space between us heavy with unsaid words, with decades of secrecy, with the fragile threads of trust we were trying to rebuild. I felt a rush of anger, the familiar sting of betrayal, but I didn't interrupt. This was the moment I had dreaded, the moment when we would confront not just the secret, but its consequences. Daniel stepped forward first, voice trembling with emotion. Why, Dad? Why did you hide her? Why did you choose to live a double life? Don't you see what this has done to Mom, to me, to our entire family? Michael closed his eyes, swallowing hard. I I was scared. Scared of losing you all. Scared of the judgment. Scared of what the world would think. I thought I could protect everyone by keeping the secret, but I see now that I only hurt everyone more. Claire stepped forward cautiously, her eyes wide. Dad, I don't want to fight. I just, I want a family. I want to be part of this. Please help us understand. Help us move forward. Daniel looked at her, confusion flickering across his face. Move forward? You don't understand, Claire. It's not just about you. It's about Dad and his choices and the life we thought we knew. How do you just forgive that? I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for understanding and a chance. I don't want to replace anyone. I just, I want to exist in this family fully and honestly. That's all. Her words struck me, quiet and sincere. For the first time, I truly saw her, not as the product of a secret, but as a person with her own hopes, her own desire to belong. I turned to Daniel, voice low but firm. Daniel, look at her. She's not the cause of the hurt. She's part of the truth we have to face. And if we can't at least try to understand her, then what hope do we have for this family? Daniel swallowed, eyes softening slightly. He looked at Claire, and for a long moment, they simply stared at each other. Two people caught in the chaos of a truth not of their making. I don't know if I can forgive everything, he said finally, voice tight, but maybe I can try to understand. And maybe that's the first step. Michael nodded, relief flickering in his eyes. That's all I ask. One step, one day at a time. The room was quiet for a moment, filled with the soft rhythm of rain against the windows and our collective breaths. And then, in that quiet, something shifted. A thread of connection, fragile but present, began to form. Later that evening, I found Claire and Daniel sitting side by side on the sofa, quietly discussing school projects, their voices low and intimate. It was tentative, awkward, and far from perfect, but it was real. They were finding a way to relate, a way to connect, despite the storm that had erupted around them. I watched them from the doorway, heart heavy, but not entirely without hope. Michael approached me, standing beside me quietly. Do you see that? He whispered. It's a start. Not perfect, not complete, but a start. I nodded slowly, voice soft. Yes, it's fragile, but fragile is better than broken. He placed a hand gently on my shoulder. Thank you for trying, for surviving this with me. I know it's been unbearable. I looked at him, the man I had loved, the man who had betrayed, and the man who now stood before me seeking redemption. Unbearable, I said quietly. Yes, but survivable. And maybe we'll find a way forward, together. Later that night, as I lay in bed, I reflected on the day's events. The confrontation was raw, painful, and necessary. For the first time, all of us had voiced the fractures, the anger, the confusion. And for the first time, there was the faintest glimmer of hope that, despite the years of secrecy, we could begin to rebuild. Claire's presence
once a source of tension, now carried the potential for connection. Daniel, once withdrawn and angry, had shown the first signs of understanding. Michael, once the architect of our pain, had begun to face the consequences of his choices. And I, caught in the middle of it all, realized something profound. Survival isn't enough. To endure is necessary, yes, but true healing comes from facing the truth, accepting its consequences, and allowing the possibility of connection to grow, however fragile. One day at a time, I whispered to myself, the mantra that had carried me through the past weeks. Endure, survive, and maybe heal. And in that quiet night, as the rain softened to a gentle drizzle, and the house settled into an uneasy calm, I allowed myself to hope, not for perfection, not for complete resolution, but for the fragile, tentative beginnings of a family that could exist despite the truths that had once threatened to destroy it. The weeks that followed were neither perfect nor easy. The house no longer felt like a battleground, but it wasn't a sanctuary either. We were learning, cautiously, deliberately, to coexist with the truth that had once threatened to destroy us.
Claire became a part of the household in small, meaningful ways, helping with dinner, sharing quiet jokes with Daniel, even sitting with Michael and me in the living room. The four of us existing in the same space without tension thick enough to suffocate. One afternoon, I found Daniel and Claire in the backyard, building a small birdhouse. Daniel's brow was furrowed in concentration, hammering the nails with care. Claire handed him the pieces, smiling softly. And for the first time, I saw the beginnings of friendship. Not perfect, but real. "She's not so bad, huh?" Daniel murmured, glancing at me as he worked. I smiled faintly, a mixture of relief and disbelief. "No," I said quietly, "not so bad at all. She's learning, and so are we." Michael joined us later, carrying lemonade for all of us. The sky was clear, the sun warm, and the tension that had hung over the house for months seemed lighter, almost bearable. "We're surviving," I said softly, watching the three of them together. "Not thriving yet, but surviving. And maybe that's enough for now." Months passed, and with them came a rhythm, a fragile equilibrium. The house no longer felt heavy with secrets. It felt lived in, worn, and real. We still had arguments, moments of doubt, flashes of anger, but they no longer defined us. They were pieces of a puzzle slowly being pieced together. One evening, we all gathered in the living room, the warm light from the lamps casting soft shadows across the walls. Claire sat between Daniel and me, a blanket draped over her lap. Michael leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful, contemplative. "I never thought I'd see this," Daniel said quietly, his tone tentative. "All of us, sitting here together, without yelling, without arguing. It feels strange, but good, I think." Claire smiled softly, leaning slightly into Daniel's shoulder. "It's strange for me too," she said, "but I like it. I think this could be home." Michael reached out, placing a hand over mine. He said, "It's been hard, too hard, but I'm grateful for every small step we take forward and for every moment we survive together." I looked at the four of us, imperfect, fractured, but present. The storm of secrets had passed, leaving us with the remnants of a family forced to confront truth, betrayal, and the delicate art of forgiveness. "One day at a time," I whispered again, the mantra that had carried me through every moment of fear, anger, and uncertainty. Endure, survive, and maybe heal. That night, as the house settled into quiet, I reflected on the journey we had taken. Michael's confession had been a bombshell, tearing through our lives like lightning through the sky. But from that chaos, we had discovered resilience, empathy, and a tentative new beginning. Claire, once a stranger, had become part of the fragile mosaic of our lives. Daniel, once distant, had begun to reconnect. Michael had faced his past, and I had faced mine. The anger, the betrayal, the fear, and ultimately, the capacity to endure. And in that quiet night, as the moonlight spilled softly across the rooms, I finally allowed myself to hope. Not for perfection, not for the past to be erased, but for the future, fragile, uncertain, and real, to be ours to navigate together. Because survival brought us here. Endurance brought us here. And perhaps in time, love and understanding would guide us forward. And for now, that was enough.